What hinders most people from enjoying the Lord is the thought that I've got to do this and I've got to do that. Oh my goodness, there's rules and regulations. I've got to, and let me say, I'm not against rules and regulations. Everything has rules and regulations. Nothing doesn't. And you ought to want to live right. But here's what happens. They get you so caught up in doing this and doing that, that you're hindered from just enjoying fellowship with the Lord. So much to do. So much to do. And so little time. We have microwave ovens now. And so it doesn't, and so guess what? We can fix a meal like that. And still we don't have time. We got to make my coffee in my French press. We have a pot, a water boiling pot, that'll boil water in like a minute. I don't have to go get the water in a pan, put the pan on the thing and give it 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, I just put that water in that thing and it'll boil water just like that. I mean, guess what? Didn't save much time. You say, why? Because there's always more to do. And so, wherefore we say, or wherefore we would have you to come, or would have come unto you, even I, Paul, once and again, but Satan hindered us. So you'll find that Satan hinders you. The normal things of life hinder you. People around you trying to stop you hinders you. People trying to tell you you're not doing it right hinder you. There's all kinds of things trying to hinder us from the things of doing the things of God. The daily responsibilities and opposition they bear, did it not keep Paul hindered? In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, page 1534, he says, seeing that many glory after the flesh, verse 18, I will glory also. For ye suffer fools gladly, seeing you yourselves are wise. For you suffer if a man bring you into bondage, if a man devour you, if a man take of you, if a man exalt himself, if a man smite you on the face. I speak as concerning reproach, as though we had been weak. Howbeit, whereinsoever any is bold, I speak foolishly. I am bold also. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they of the seed of Abraham? So am I. Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool, I am more. And he goes on, and labors more abundant, and stripes more above measure, and prisons more frequent, and deaths oft. I mean, this is the Apostle Paul talking about thrice I was beaten with rods. I mean, here he is. He tells he's in journeyings oft, and perils of water, and perils of robbers, and perils of mine own countrymen, and perils by the heathen, and I mean, just keeps on going. And then in verse number 28, he said, besides those things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily, talking about all those things that have just happened, that have been happening to him, he said, the care of all the churches. Wow. Here's the Apostle Paul saying, doing what I'm supposed to do sometimes is a burden. He's not saying he's not delighting in it. He said, I glory in the cross of Christ. He said, I'm crucified with Christ. He said, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me, and the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God. But these things are slowing him down from doing everything he would like to do. So what do we find? We can have many burdens, cares, or weights that hinder our Christian walk. In 1 Peter 3 and verse number 7, he says, likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. If I don't want my prayer life hindered, I have to try to dwell with my wife according to knowledge. That's part of life. And so there's all kinds of things that can hinder us. Martha was cumbered about with much serving. I mean, it bothered her. She had a lot to do. And so what did she do? She got all upset and said, why ain't Mary helping? So every Christian is to lay aside weights. I mean, that's very simple. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight. Us. He is dealing with you and me, just like he was dealing with those that he was writing that letter to. All of them, including himself, and including a whole crowd that would read that letter, need to lay aside the weights. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God, James tells us in chapter 4. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to God and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Be afflicted and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning and your joy into heaviness. Humble yourselves in the mighty hand, or in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. Now who's responsible to do this? He said, let us lay aside it. Nobody else can lay aside those weights for you. Especially the older you get. I mean, I can take this out of your life. I can take that out of your life. I can ground you and say you can't go such and such a place. And I can say you can't have your little machines or whatever. You can't watch this. Or I can do that for somebody who's young. But I cannot do that for an adult. The older you get, the more you're responsible for your actions. He tells us in Romans chapter 14 and verse number 12, so that every one of us shall give an account of himself to God. Your Christian life is not solely my responsibility. It is my responsibility to make sure that you know what God would have you to do. But your responsibility to take those things and act upon them. You must give an account of yourself to God. In Galatians chapter 6, in verse number 4, it said, but let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. For every man shall bear his own burden. Now, I can bear your burden to the Lord. And bearing one another's burdens. We're supposed to. I'm supposed to care about you and come in together and encourage you. But ultimately, I cannot carry your weight for you. I can't do that. I can want to. Miss Melissa has back pain, backache. I wish I could take them away from her. I wish I could make it to where she didn't have to do things that would wear on her back and hurt her back. I can't. I mean, some things I can help with, but some things I just can't. Every one of us got things that are weighing on us and so forth. We can't take that, we can't. But I can help the best I can. But ultimately, a person has to give account for themselves. You're responsible for what you do. So, what time is it? One of these days I am going to get a pocketbook. Huh? Okay, I'm going to give you real quick, like, just a few things. How we lay aside the weights. All right? Number one, we're run with patience. Our Christian race is a lifelong race. Therefore, we're not to expect immediate victory in every area. For weights. Sin, what do we do with sin? We confess it and we forsake it. Weights, we have to realize I'm not always going to have victory over weights. I want to keep casting them on the Lord. I'll give you something here real simple. Any of y'all ever had some unforgiveness in your heart? Any bitterness in your heart? And it's burdening you down? And you confess it? And you say, I'm going to forsake it? But then that person's name comes back up, and something else comes up, and you have to confess it and forsake it, and you feel like there's still a burden there. Now the sin is you allowing it to cause you to allow bitterness to consume your life. But the weight there is, I've been hurt. I've been hindered. And now I keep on trying to get rid of it. And you find I have to keep confessing this thing, keep forsaking it, and I can't because it's a weight. It's not something I'm acting upon, it's something that I'm burdened with. It's something that I feel inside, but I'm not out bad-mouthing the person. Because bad-mouthing is a sin. And, I mean, talebearers separate chief friends. Is that not what it says? And, but all this, you've got this weight. But you keep forgiving. 7 times 70 times in a day. It's 490. I did math. I passed. 7 times 70, 490. And so you pass, I passed math. I keep on saying, I've got to forgive them again. Every time I think about this thing, I've got to forgive. I've got to forgive. I've got to forgive. Every time their name comes up and I find there's something down inside of me, that root of bitterness that's trying to spring up and trouble me, I've got to forgive. You know what happens? After a while, you grow to where that's not the big bother of your life. Because you come to the place where you've grown. Now that thing is no longer a weight. Now you can hear the name and it doesn't bother you. Now you can go where that person's at and it doesn't bother you. And I'm talking about I'm not talking about on light matters. I'm talking about serious matters. I'm talking it takes time to get away from, get weights off. We just keep on casting our cares to the Lord, knowing that He careth for us. So just if you're steady and dedicated, the Lord will take these things away from us. What we need taken away. If it's something that doesn't need to be taken away, we're able to get victory over this by looking unto Jesus. Hebrews 10 and verse number 6 tells us, for ye have need of patience, that after you've done the will of God, you might receive the promise. That's how you have need of patience. You're supposed to run with patience the race that is set before us. That's the patience side. The other side, so that it's not all going to go away, right? But you will be made perfect after you've suffered a while. And so we find in verse 2 of chapter 12, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher for our faith, who for the joy that was set before him, he endured the burden, the cross. He never sinned. The weight that was put on him was our sin. The weight that was put on him was he took our sin for us. He bore our sin in his own body on the tree. And so he endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that suffered such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your mind. Wait. We need to consider Christ. Consider Jesus as he bore our sin, bear our sin. And therefore we can bear it on and keep going and won't quit. Consider the contradiction of sinners against him as they mocked him and ridiculed him when he was doing right. Consider our light affliction, which is but for a moment. Then don't get weary or faint. Don't let it wear you out. Just keep on going. The weights, they're going to be there. Some of them are things that we can get rid of. Some things that we can't at this point in time. You realize this? Now, I'm looking forward to this. Just give you this real simple. I've got 2 children. I told you that they came along. There's things I've got to do for them, responsibilities. One day, they're going to have the weight of taking care of their mom as she grows older. They've got that weight on them. Say, what are you talking about? It's not a bad thing. It's the right thing. But it still is a weight. It'll change the way you do things. That is how the Lord set this thing up. So every weight that we can set aside, set aside. The ones we can't, we forbear. We endure hardness as good soldiers of Jesus Christ and go along with that weight. See, that's what weights are. They're things that can hinder us from things. God sometimes puts them in there, sometimes the devil. Weights. But the ones that beset us and keep us from doing the will of God, get rid of them. And we say, your children are the will of God, that God gave to you. And children are an heritage of the Lord. So God gave it to you. Father, I pray you'd help us.